The 2025 VW Tiguan. I'll be the first one to tell you in the past, Mark and I weren't the biggest fans of this car. While it did have pretty good driving dynamics for its class, probably in first or second place depending on how you felt about the CX-5, it lacked any sort of design flair and it felt very milquetoast. And when you compared it to something like a RAV4, it lacked its residuals or reliability, and it lacked its overall refinement of something like the CR-V with its excellent interior. However, what they've changed for this 25 model year is remarkable, and this has gone from being one of my least favorite cars in this class to probably my favorite. Now, before we talk about the interior and exterior and head in the shop, let's talk about price, because that's the most relevant thing in this class. This car starts at just over $30,000. When you add all-wheel drive to it, it's an extra about $2,000. A well-equipped Tiguan is in the, let's call it mid to high 30s, essentially fully loaded with the base power application, which is just over 200 horsepower, just over 220 foot-pounds of torque. You're looking at about $40,000-ish, $41,000. And they have a more powerful drivetrain option, same engine, different internals, more boost, more power. That adds a couple $1,000s as well. We have an SELR here, which is the top trim with the base engine. This thing is just over 40 grand. And if you look at the interior space, the features it has, it's definitely a cut above for this class. There's interesting colors in the interior, a good use of materials, leather, fake woods. You get massaging seats, which is unheard of in this class of vehicle. You have heated and cooled seats, good adjustment. The Harman Kardon audio system is quite good. And yes, they've needlessly increased the size of the center display, but unlike in the past, in let's say the old GTI and Golf R, it's at least backlit. And most importantly, there are still physical controls for the windows. On the steering wheel, there aren't haptic controls. You have a physical audio knob here in the center, which also doubles as a drive mode selector and mood mode selector. And they've done a good job increasing the overall usability of this car. Well, yes, you've lost the third row, something that the Tiguan strangely had for this class of vehicle. You still have great door storage. They moved the shifter to the steering wheel stocks, so they further opened up the center console, which is great for storage. The rear doors open up in basically 90 degrees, which means it's easy to get in and out, particularly if you have to put in a car seat. The rear seats are large enough for 2 adults or 3 mid-size adults. And the trunk space in this car, while it's not as big as a CR-V or a RAV4, it's not noticeably smaller, but it is smaller, which is definitely something you're gonna have to consider. The load floor is open and wide, and it's very easy to get things in and out of this vehicle. The overall noise floor for this vehicle as well, at least to my ear, and we're not doing an A/B test, is quite low. I definitely think this is much quieter than a RAV4 and as quiet as a top trim CR-V, which definitely overall makes this vehicle feel more expensive than it really is. So let's head in the shop and put this thing up on the lift. In the shop with the 2025 VW Tiguan. So what do you need to know? Well, this is the portion of the video we're going to walk you through the mechanical changes. This is on MQB Evo, and versus the outgoing Tiguan, they've shaved about 170 pounds out of the structure of this vehicle. How have they done that? Well, they use some more high-strength steel. They add aluminum in the suspension, which is really only found in the knuckles front and rear. They delete the third row, and this has some of the latest body structure improvements. From a safety perspective, there are 10 airbags and the latest interior electronics, both from a infotainment perspective and from a safety side of things. Now, when it comes to the drivetrain, this vehicle has, as of now, 2 powertrain options, though they're going to add a third. This can be had with the low output 2-liter E888 engine. It makes over 200 horsepower and over 221 foot-pounds of torque. That's your base setup. Obviously, it can be had as either front-wheel drive or four-motion all-wheel drive. When you option in the on-demand all-wheel drive system, it also increases the towing capacity. It goes from 1,500 to 1,800 pounds. And it uses a, thankfully, traditional 8-speed torque-converted automatic gearbox, no CVT here. They also have, as of today, the turbo powertrain. It's the same engine, they're both turbocharged, it's the 2-liter E888. However, they made some internal changes, make 67 additional horsepower, even more torque. They changed the intercooler, some internals, the turbo, the fueling system. Basically, they wanted a hot version of the Tiguan. Though, honestly, this is probably more than enough for most people. When you look at the fuel economy of these things, they're right in line with their competitors. They're non-hybrid competitors. So that, Mark and I are gonna go take you for a quick drive on our favorite, well, regular roads.
Jack, the previous generation of this car was the extreme white bread, What did they do?
Everything, Mark. This has gone from being probably one of my least favorite CUVs, not because it drove poorly, but because it was so forgettable, so cheap feeling.
It felt like a rental car.
Yes, to being easily my favorite of the CUVs in its class, because it feels like they tried. They tried to make this feel more expensive than it really is. Yes, fully loaded, 41,000 or whatever, just over 40,000 isn't cheap, but everything's expensive now. And this car has massaging seats, it has a decent audio system, the interior space has some design to it, the exterior has some design to it, and it drives like a Golf with all-wheel drive on stilts. And that is exactly what a vehicle like this should drive. Like this and probably the CX-50 are the two best dynamically in the CV class, which is, again, not saying a whole lot. None of these cars are hot hatches, but these things are all like penalty boxes if you like driving. The reason I like the CR-V is because it acknowledges itself as a penalty box and it's just ultra quiet, ultra comfortable, and gets good fuel economy. This is trying to put some life into the mom and dad car, and I think they've done a good job. I mean, what do you think?
We had a very contentious conversation with somebody inside of Volkswagen several years ago, where there was this argument about the RAV4, that people should not be buying RAV4s, that the Tiguan was a far better car. And I'd argue that if you wanted a straight up appliance like the Tiguan was, there was no excuse to get this at all, given the resale value of the Toyota and its pure reliability. Yes. And parts availability and all of those things that why people buy an appliance. The Tiguan didn't really offer anything.
Other than driving a little better.
Yeah, it was just more refined, right? But that wasn't enough. This car, and I mean, if you're working at a VW dealership and you're getting these things in and you have a customer come in, it sells itself. This is one of the very few like CUV, SUV things where you just get in it, and granted this is on upper trim level, but you're like, man, look how far they came and how much work they put in to try to make this better. And it's not perfect, like all of them are. They still have to have the wow factor gimmick bullshit, like this enormous screen. Like, doesn't need to be this big. It's like just pointless, but it's gonna like stand out to somebody that's coming in a showroom. The way that the gauge cluster is integrated into the dash, the interior layout, the way that it has physical controls now again where it should be, it's finding a much better balance, and it doesn't feel like they just straight up cost cut the hell out of this thing in every single corner to meet their numbers, right? It feels like they spent the money and they might not have as high a margins, but the overall feeling that you get driving this car is it feels more refined and quiet than a lot of the competitions. It feels more well put together, that's a surface level thing, but everything in here is really, really nice, and the drivability is going to make people very, very happy in this segment compared to what else is out there.
Yes. So, drivetrain. It's both a pro and a con in this car. The EA888 is a good engine. It always has been. And, reliability is not always perfect.
Yeah, and repairability too. Yes. Certain chicken shit things you're going to have to deal with this car that you wouldn't have to deal with a RAV4 in terms of serviceability. Right.
So this has a little over 200 horsepower, like over 200 foot-pounds of torque. It's quick enough, 0 to 60 in 8 seconds. Most notably, it does not have a CVT.
Yes. Having
physical gears makes this a less rattly experience. The con isn't performance, it's fuel economy. Like I think of a RAV4, for example. Yes, right. We have the new RAV4 coming that's hybrid and blah, blah, blah. But the current RAV4 that you can buy right now has a torque-converted automatic and a rattly 4-cylinder. And that rattly 4-cylinder, honestly, while it is slower than this, returns over 30 miles to the gallon. This doesn't. In my experience, it's like mid-20s if you drive this thing around like a regular-ish person, stop and go, trying to merge, blah, blah, blah. That's a con. And it's a little firmer than something like a CR-V.
Yeah, the high-frequency stuff, there's definitely more high-frequency vibration that comes through on these like really sharp impacts. You feel it more. The bigger bumps where there's more compression does a great job, and this is going to be a much better highway car than like a RAV4 because of the way the suspension's tuned. So if you do a lot of highway driving, you're going to appreciate it, but around town, you're just going to have to get used that it's firm. But it's not firm in a bad way like the CX-50, where it's like abrasive firm and it gets fatiguing. This doesn't get fatiguing, it's just normal. The thing I will say about the power level on this, so if you really need the zest off the line or more power, I would definitely keep it in sport. But when you're in just the regular drive mode, it feels more dead. Yeah, it definitely feels dead. So, pros or cons, overall, I'm going to get in the final thoughts, Jack, and let you sum all of the changes up.
All right. You know, Mark, ever since I drove a VW, I've never felt understeer. Final thoughts on the 2025 VW Tiguan. Well, Volkswagen has taken a car from being something I honestly did not like being in to being one of my favorite vehicles in its class. They've done that by dramatically improving exterior styling, interior styling, and just the general fit and finish of this vehicle. The cabin, particularly in this high trim, no longer feels like a rental car. There's a good use of materials, a great set of, let's call it, luxury features like massaging seats, a reasonable audio system, pretty good infotainment, and a general sense of style to the cabin that's largely lacking from most of its competitors. And it's done a good job with its space. It's well packaged on the inside. Opening up the center console was great, good door storage, easy to get in out of back seats, and a big enough trunk with a wide load floor. Honestly, really, its only cons versus its Japanese rivals at least are its perceived reliability and its perceived residuals. Let's see how it does long term, and I'm very curious to drive the upcoming hybrid drivetrain and its higher output cousin, the Turbo Tiguan. I think it'll spice up this car enough to keep Mark interested. This thing from a dynamic perspective as well is definitely sort of in line with the Mazda sort of being top of its class, though it's a little bit on the firm side. So with that, thanks for watching. Hope to see you again soon.